In this video, we're going to replace the Human Touch Opus footrest actuator. First thing we're going to do is use the end of a paper clip to open the zipper that attaches the shroud to the backrest. Insert the paper clip into the zipper head and open that zipper. Then, using a Phillips head screwdriver, remove the 2 screws that secure the shroud. And then simply pull the shroud up and toward you to remove it. Next, we're going to use a Phillips head screwdriver to remove the 2 white plastic covers. To give us access to the cable connectors. Pull the cables up out of the plastic cover cable guides, and then you can slide that rear cover out of the way. The cables related to the footrest actuators, you'll notice the cables are numbered. The cables we need to disconnect from the PCB here are numbers 4 and number 2. So we'll start with number 4, which is black and brown wire. So we need to follow that wire all the way through this bird's nest of cables here, cutting any zip ties along the way that are securing it, until we reach the blue connector at the end of it, which we can then disconnect. And we can pull that cable free. Okay, next is cable number 2. Cable number 2 is a pink and gray cable. The plugs directly into the board there, so there's no need to cut zip ties. And the cabling's free then. To remove the actuator, we're going to tip the chair onto its left-hand side, which will give us easy access to the actuator. Before we remove the actuator, we need to cut 4 zip ties that secure the cabling. If you'll note, there are 3 of them have a corresponding hole in the chair frame. Pay attention to these locations. So that's the first one. And the second one is just a little bit above that. The third one is up further, and then the fourth one, which does not have a hole in the chair frame, is secured around the chair frame. So pay attention to where the holes in the frame are for the first 3 zip ties, because you'll need to reinstall new zip ties there when installing the new actuator. To remove the actuator, we are going to use a 10mm Allen wrench to remove the Allen bolts on the top and the bottom of the front mounting point. Okay, to remove the rear end of the actuator, then we use a needle nose plier to remove the clip that secures the pin. And then push the pin upward to remove it. And the actuator is freed from the chair. To install the new actuator, we're going to start with the rear mounting point, aligning the actuator mounting point with the bracket on the chair, and then sliding the pin downward from the top. Once the pin is in, we can replace the clip at the bottom to secure it. Okay, next we need to align the front mounting point. You can manually adjust the calf massager as necessary to align those points, and replace the two 10mm Allen bolts to secure it. After the actuator is installed, then we need to secure the cabling using new zip ties in the same locations they were secured previously. It's easy to remember where those were because there are, for three of the holes, there's holes in the chair frame for the zip ties. So from the actuator, follow the cabling upward and you'll find holes along the frame for the first three. For the fourth zip tie, then, there isn't a hole in the chair frame, but simply secure the cables with using a zip tie wrapped around the chair frame. Next, we're going to tip the chair back upright to provide easier access for the cable connectors. To install the footrest actuator cables, then, we're going to take number 4 and run it under the top black cable and connect it to the corresponding connector on the board. And then we need to replace the zip ties we removed earlier. And then cut the excess zip tie. Then we need to connect cable number 2 to the connector that's in the front of the board. Next, we need to isolate the 8 cables that are coming from the backrest. They all have the strain relief, so they're easy to identify, but just to make sure, observe which cables are coming from the backrest. Okay, and hold them in your hand, so a little bit off to the right. We're making room to install that rear plastic cover. We'll slide that cover in from the left, underneath those 8 cables that are coming from the backrest. And then replacing the 2 screws to secure that rear cover. Now we're ready to start inserting the cables into the cable guides in that plastic cover. We'll start on the left side with the largest set of cables, and then on the right side, the second largest goes in the far right, and then the smaller cables don't really matter, so you can just insert those into the cable guides wherever they are falling, wherever they're falling. Once the cables are neatly arranged in the cable guides there, we're ready to install the front plastic cover, which you should just be able to place into position and secure using the 4 screws. Align the slots on each side of the shroud with the corresponding posts on the chair frame, and slide the shroud around those posts as far as it will go, and then lower it into position. Then simply replace the 2 Phillips head screws. And we're done.